When cancer knocked on her door, the man she trusted simply walked away. But life wasn't done with her. What she lost in one moment, destiny was about to return in the most unexpected way. Before we dive in, if you love emotional stories with heartbreak, redemption, and powerful love, make sure to subscribe. Take a deep breath. Because this one might stay with you for a long time. Chicago, 2024. The city pulsed with relentless energy, a maze of steel, glass, and ambition that never slept, never rested, never offered mercy. The streets teemed with people rushing, always chasing something that remained forever out of reach. The buildings rose like giants of concrete and greed, their glass facades reflecting a sun that seemed hotter, crueler with each passing year. At the summit of an imposing skyscraper, in an office that cost more than most people's entire homes, Claire Morgan stood observing the city at her feet like a general surveying a battlefield she had conquered but could never fully control. Her figure was that of a successful woman, the kind magazines put on their covers, the kind other women envied in silence, the kind men admired with a mixture of desire and fear. Her suits were impeccable, tailored by designers who knew her body better than she knew herself. Her posture was unbreakable, her spine straight as a blade, her shoulders back, her chin raised as if challenging the entire world to question her authority. Her blonde hair, always perfectly styled, didn't dare fall out of place, not a single strand dared defy her iron will. Her eyes, blue as a winter sky, were cold and calculating, capable of reading a person in seconds and determining their value, their usefulness, their relevance. She had built a brilliant career, climbing every rung of the corporate ladder with a determination few possessed, with a coldness that made her practically invincible. She started as a junior analyst, sleeping in the office, eating cold sandwiches while her colleagues went home to their families. She had no time for distractions. She had no time for weakness. Every report she delivered was flawless. Every presentation was a masterpiece of precision and strategy. Every decision she made was calculated to maximize profits, minimize losses, eliminate the competition. She was the embodiment of what society called making it, a model of perfection and efficiency, a human machine that functioned without flaws, without emotions, without hesitation. The awards accumulated in her office: Executive of the Year, Outstanding Performance in Management, Exemplary Leadership. Her photos appeared in business newspapers, always with that controlled smile, that gaze that revealed nothing. People respected her. Some feared her. Nobody really knew her. Nobody knew that behind that steel facade was an exhausted woman, imprisoned in a life she had built herself, brick by brick, with the expectations of others, with the impositions of a family that valued status above everything, above happiness, above humanity. 20 years of marriage to Richard Hale had molded her life into a routine of appearances and conveniences, a choreographed dance that she had learned to execute perfectly, even though every movement hurt. For him, it was a successful partnership, a union that brought status, comfort, and a wife who was a trophy at social events, a piece of art he displayed with pride, like a Picasso hanging in his living room. Richard was a handsome man in his own way, silver hair that made him look distinguished, a smile that opened doors, a voice that inspired confidence. He was a successful attorney with important clients and connections that mattered. He took pride in the fact that the machine that was Claire had financed that dazzling office view, every luxury, every international trip, every piece of art adorning their expensive penthouse in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. He spoke about her the way one speaks about a good investment, with satisfaction, with a sense of ownership, with the certainty that he had made a smart choice. "My wife is an executive at one of the country's largest corporations," he would say at dinner parties, placing his hand on her shoulder in a gesture meant to be affectionate but that felt like a chain. "She's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. I don't know how she manages it all." He would smile, and the people around them would smile too, admiring that perfect couple, that partnership that seemed straight out of a Hollywood movie, not knowing it was actually a horror film, a modern Greek tragedy, a story of two people who had chosen security over truth. But behind the opulence, Claire felt increasingly distant, an echo in her own house, a number on a life spreadsheet, a piece in a game that wasn't hers. She had married the idea of what she should be, with her parents' approval, those parents who never asked what she wanted, who simply told her what she would do. She had married with the promise of a right life, safe and socially acceptable. But the right life, she was beginning to realize with a clarity that terrified her, was a golden cage, suffocating her soul, imprisoning her true desires and her essence, that part of her that still breathed, that still dreamed, that still remembered who she had been before all of this. The routine was relentless, crushing, like a weight that increased every day. Endless meetings that started at 7 in the morning and ended long after the sun had disappeared. Tight deadlines that demanded she work late into the night, her fingers sliding across the computer keyboard, her eyes burning with exhaustion. Business trips that took her further and further from herself, from any remnant of individuality, from any chance to simply be, without doing, without producing, without achieving. She spent nights in luxury hotels, alone in rooms that cost more than many people's monthly salaries, and wondered how she had gotten here, how she had become this woman she didn't recognize in the mirror. The time for her own desires, for her own essence, had vanished long ago, like sand slipping through her fingers. Her children, Ethan, already married with kids of his own, and Lily, studying at a prestigious university abroad, were her greatest joy, the only thing that still made her feel something genuine. But even motherhood had been shaped by the demands of her career and her husband, becoming just another item on her list of successfully completed tasks. She had been the mother who attended school events but always with her phone in hand, always ready to leave if an important call came. She had been the mother who gave expensive gifts instead of time, who compensated for her absence with money, who believed love could be measured in dollars. She was the perfect daughter, the one who had obeyed her parents, who had followed the path laid out for her, who had become exactly what they wanted her to be. She was the perfect wife, the one who kept the house in order, who appeared at Richard's side with the right smile, who never embarrassed him, who never questioned his decisions. She was the perfect mother, the one who ensured her children had the best schools, the best opportunities, even if it meant sacrificing her own sanity. She was the perfect professional, the one who always delivered results, who never failed, who was reliable, predictable, efficient. She was the perfect choice. But at what cost? At what price had she paid for that perfection? Exhaustion was a constant companion, a ghost that followed her every step, whispering in her ear, reminding her that she was tired, so tired that sometimes she struggled to remember why she was awake. A deep emptiness, a silent abyss, inhabited her heart, corroding her from within, consuming her slowly, like an invisible cancer that no one could see but that she felt with every breath. The world Claire had so meticulously constructed on pillars of success and appearances began to crumble with a single phone call. It wasn't a dramatic event. It wasn't something she saw coming. It was simply a call, a voice on the phone, words spoken with gentleness but carrying a weight that froze her to her core. The phone rang in her impeccable office, the one she had decorated with care, with modern art on the walls, with furniture that cost more than entire houses. She was in a meeting, but she answered, she always answered when it was the doctor's office. Something in her instinct told her that call was important, that it would change everything. The doctor's voice, though kind, carried a weight that chilled her to the bone. The biopsy results were ready. She had gotten the biopsy 2 weeks ago after discovering a lump during a routine exam. She had tried not to think about it, had tried to stay calm, had tried to continue as if nothing was happening. But now, that call, those words the doctor was about to say, everything would change. Ms. Morgan, the results confirm what we suspected. You have invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 2B. The words that followed were a devastating blow, a thunderclap that echoed through every cell of her body, paralyzing her, leaving her breathless. Breast cancer. The word no one wants to hear. The word that changes everything. The word that transforms a person into a patient, that reduces an entire life to a diagnosis. The news hit her like lightning in a clear sky, disintegrating her inner fortress, the one she had built over decades, the one that had kept her standing through every challenge, every obstacle, every pain. She felt her legs weaken. She felt the office spin around her. She sat down in her chair, still holding the phone, while the doctor continued talking about treatment options, prognosis, next steps. She didn't hear any of it. She only felt the weight of her life cracking. She sought refuge in Richard, hoping to find support, a safe harbor in the storm that was approaching. She needed his hand, his voice, his presence, something to anchor her to reality, to remind her that she wasn't alone in this. She came home earlier than usual, something she rarely did. Richard was in his home office, working, as always. She entered, closed the door, and simply fell apart. The tears began to fall, and she couldn't stop them. She told him about the diagnosis, about what the doctor had said, about the treatment that awaited her. Richard listened in silence. His face remained impassive, as if she were talking about the weather, about something trivial that didn't deserve his emotional attention. When she finished, he stood up, walked to the window, and stood there with his back to her for what felt like an eternity. Then he turned around. And in 20 cruel seconds, he erased 20 years of history, of living together, of promises to love her in sickness and in health. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I can't live like this. His words, cold, calculated, and devoid of any empathy, were like knives that buried themselves in her soul, one after another, each one deeper than the last. What? She whispered, unable to believe what she was hearing. Richard, I need you now more than ever. I know. And I'm sorry. But I can't. I can't go through this. I can't see you like this, sick, weak, dependent. I can't. He spoke as if he were doing her a favor, as if leaving her were an act of kindness, as if he were somehow liberating her. You're leaving me? Now? When I need you most? Her voice was a hoarse whisper, full of disbelief, of pain, of a betrayal so deep she couldn't comprehend it. I've already scheduled a meeting with my lawyer. We'll do this amicably, no drama. You keep the house, most of the assets. I'll be fair with you. But I need to move on. I need to live my life. He spoke as if he were discussing a business contract, as if he weren't destroying the woman he had promised to love. Is there someone else? She asked, and she already knew the answer before she asked the question. She had noticed the glances, the text messages he deleted quickly, the nights he said he had to work late. Yes. She's young, beautiful, healthy. She doesn't have problems. She's not a burden. He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if he weren't driving the knife even deeper into her heart. The secretary. Of course. 20 years younger, with breasts untouched by disease, with a future unmarred by the possibility of death. He left her without looking back, without a word of comfort, in search of a life without problems, without the shadow of the disease he considered a burden, an inconvenience, a reason to abandon the woman he had promised to love. Claire was left there, alone, with the diagnosis and the abandonment, a pain that mixed and multiplied, becoming almost unbearable. Her daughter, sensing her mother's deep sadness through a phone call, tried to comfort her, but the wound was too deep. Richard's betrayal had left an indelible mark that no words could heal. Mom, what happened? Why are you crying? Her daughter asked, her voice full of concern, even from the other side of the world. He left me. Richard left me. I have cancer, and he left me. The words came out like a muffled scream, like she was drowning and calling for help. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry you're going through this. But I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm here with you, even from a distance. I love you, Mom. Her daughter's voice was a balm, but it wasn't enough to fill the void left by Richard's departure. Claire felt incredibly alone, her heart broken into 1,000 pieces and her body already weakened by the news, feeling like a burden, a weight on everyone, exactly as Richard had suggested. The doctor, perceiving Claire's emotional fragility during a follow-up appointment, watched her wither with each passing day. She had lost weight, her eyes were empty, her voice was a whisper. He knew that physical treatment would be ineffective without a minimum of peace of mind, without a reason to fight, without hope to keep her alive. Ms. Morgan, I can see you're going through a very difficult time. It's not just the disease, is it? It's everything together, he asked, with a compassion that was rare in a medical office. Yes. My husband left me. My children are far away. I feel alone, doctor. I feel like I'm disappearing. She confessed, her hands trembling as she spoke. The doctor thought for a moment, and then said something that seemed absurd in the context of that office. In that moment of despair, make the most of your time. Take a trip. Have fun. Go somewhere you love, somewhere you've always wanted to go. Do something for yourself, for the first time in a long time. The idea seemed absurd at first, in the midst of so much suffering and despair, but it began to germinate in her mind like a small seed of hope, an opportunity to breathe, a chance to be something more than a cancer patient, something more than an abandoned woman. Richard had thought he was leaving behind a sick woman, weak, defeated, condemned to loneliness, condemned to wither away in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped, surrounded by nurses who treated her with pity. He had no idea what he had just freed. That abandonment, as painful as it was also a door, an opportunity to start again, to reconnect with who she really was, before all the impositions and expectations that had imprisoned her for decades. She decided to go to Willow Creek, Colorado, a small mountain town where her childhood friend Catherine Rivera lived. It was a place that held memories of a different Claire. A lighter Claire. A happier Claire. A Claire who had existed before Chicago, before Richard, before all of this. A Claire who still believed that life could be simple, that happiness could be found in small things, in simple moments, in genuine connections with people. Can you drive there alone, Mom? Her daughter asked, worried about her fragility, about the fact that she was going through chemotherapy, about the fact that she was emotionally vulnerable. I just need to breathe, sweetheart. I'm going to take care of myself. Don't tell your brother or your husband about the disease. I need this time for myself, to process everything. I promise I'll call every day. Claire needed that space, that privacy to process everything, away from the curious eyes and judgments of Chicago, away from the pressure of having to be strong all the time, away from the expectation that she should be fine, that she should be fighting, that she should be the strong mother she had always been. The drive was long, but therapeutic. She drove for hours, passing through small towns, through landscapes that gradually changed from urban to rural. Each mile traveled was a step away from pain, toward a past she had buried, toward a version of herself she had forgotten existed. The journey was a balm for her wounded soul. The green landscapes, the pure mountain air, the smell of wet earth after rain, the simplicity of life in the country, all of it contrasted violently with the chaos of her recent life, with the chaos of Chicago, with the chaos of her mind. Each breath was easier than the last. Each mile traveled was a step away from pain. When she arrived in Willow Creek, Catherine greeted her with a tight embrace and a warm smile, a reunion of souls that time hadn't managed to erase, only strengthen. "Claire. My God, how long has it been? You're here. You finally came." Catherine had aged, of course, but there was a beauty in her aging, an authenticity that Claire had never seen in Chicago, where women fought against time with surgeries and injections. "Catherine, I needed to come. I needed to get out of there. I can't take it anymore." Claire opened up, and the two friends embraced, two women who had lived such different lives but who still shared a connection that time hadn't broken. That night, sitting on Catherine's porch with a hot cup of coffee in their hands, Claire told her everything. She told her about the unhappy marriage, about the pressure from her parents, about the disease, about Richard's abandonment. "I was never happy in that marriage, Catherine. Never. Not for a single day." She recalled the pressure from her parents, who would never have allowed her to follow her own desires, who had pushed her down the right path, toward marriage with Richard, toward the life she had lived. "My parents told me I had to marry someone with status, someone who could offer me security, someone who was respectable. They never asked what I wanted. They just told me what I would do." Catherine listened attentively, understanding her friend's pain, the depth of her suffering. That place, rustic and welcoming, had a special charm, an invitation to life, to introspection, to healing. It was so different from Chicago, so different from everything Claire had known in the last 20 years. "You know, Claire, I left Chicago because I couldn't breathe there. I felt like I was dying slowly, like my soul was being sucked out by that city. I came here, and I found peace. I found life." Catherine spoke with a wisdom that came from someone who had made a different choice, who had followed her heart instead of following the expectations of others. "I should have done the same," sighed Claire. "I should have had the courage." "You still have time," said Catherine, taking Claire's hand. "You're still alive. You can still make different choices." While Claire sat on Catherine's porch in Willow Creek, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and violet, her mind drifted backward through time, as if the universe itself was pulling her towards something she couldn't yet understand. She found herself remembering a different version of herself. A younger Claire. A Claire who still believed in simple things. More than 20 years ago, in this same small Colorado town, there had been a harvest festival. Music. Laughter. A girl with sun-kissed skin and loose hair, dancing under the stars like she had nothing to lose. That girl had been her once. Catherine invited her to a festival happening that weekend, a harvest celebration at one of the local ranches. "You need to get out, Claire. You need to remember that you're still alive. Come with me. It'll be good for you." Claire hesitated. But something inside her, a small, almost forgotten voice, whispered yes. The night of the festival arrived, and Claire found herself in a simple dress that Catherine had lent her. Not designer. Not expensive. But somehow, it made her feel more beautiful than any of her tailored suits ever had. She looked in the mirror and, for just a moment, saw the young Claire looking back at her. The festival was everything Catherine had promised. The smell of grilled meat in the air. Country music drifting from speakers. People laughing, drinking cold beer, telling stories. Children running between the adults. Couples dancing together, their bodies moving in sync, their faces glowing with happiness. It was so different from Chicago. So different from the sterile corporate events she'd attended for 2 decades. She was standing alone, still feeling like an outsider, when she felt it. A presence. She turned, and her eyes met his. And time stopped. Luke Carter. The first love. The one her parents had forbidden. The boy she'd loved with the intensity of someone who didn't yet know that life could break you. He was standing there, older now, weathered by sun and work, but unmistakably him. Strong. With a smile that lit up the entire gathering. With eyes that held something she'd spent 20 years trying to forget. He was the ranch manager, helping his parents, living a simple, authentic life, everything her parents had taught her to despise, everything she'd secretly always admired. When their eyes met, something inside Claire shattered and reformed all at once. Luke saw her and stopped moving. His face changed. His eyes widened as if he were seeing a ghost. A miracle. He walked toward her slowly, carefully, like she might disappear if he moved too fast. "Claire," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion and disbelief. "Luke," she breathed, and it was all she could manage. Her heart was racing so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Her hands were shaking. Her legs felt weak. "You're here. You came back." He spoke like someone in a trance. "How many years?" 20? You're still so beautiful." She didn't know what to say. How do you explain 20 years to the person who was supposed to be your forever? They stood there, staring at each other, while the world continued spinning around them, the music, the laughter, the dancing, but for them, nothing else existed. "Do you want to dance?" he asked, extending his hand with a smile that was so familiar, so comforting, that she felt like she was coming home. She took his hand, and 20 years evaporated in an instant. They danced, and every movement was a conversation. Every touch was a promise. Every glance was a confession of a love that had never died, only been buried. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Luke and Claire spent hours together under the shade of old cottonwood trees, reviving memories, creating new ones. He took her to see sunsets in places she'd forgotten existed. He made her feel the cool mountain breeze on her face. He showed her stars and skies untouched by city lights. They sat by a crystal-clear stream, and Claire confessed things she'd never told anyone. Her fears. Her insecurities. Her deepest dreams, the ones she'd buried so deep she thought they were dead. She told him about the empty marriage. About the pressure from her parents. About Richard's betrayal. About the cancer eating away at her from the inside. "I'm here with you," he said, holding her hand, his voice steady and true. "I've always been here with you." He helped her face her fear of heights by taking her hiking on steep mountain trails, climbing to peaks where the world spread out beneath them. She felt small, but also free. Some days felt like they could last forever, filled with genuine laughter, whispered confessions, and the rediscovery of a love that seemed written in the stars, a love that defied every social convention and family expectation. They rode horses through valleys she remembered from her youth. They swam in ice-cold streams. They sat under the stars and talked until dawn. "Do you remember?" he asked one evening as they rode along a familiar path. "Do you remember when you fell off the horse here, and I had to carry you home?" "I remember," she said, laughing, a real laugh that came from deep in her chest, a laugh she had forgotten how to make. "You were so gentle with me. You carried me like I was made of glass. You were precious to me," he said, and there was sadness in his voice, a sadness that spoke of 20 years of waiting, of a love that had remained unrequited, or rather, that had been reciprocated but forbidden, that had been denied. One night, while they sat under the stars, Luke finally told the truth about himself, a truth he had kept hidden for 20 years, a truth that would change everything. "Claire, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you when we were young, but your parents never allowed me to." He took a deep breath, as if preparing for an important confession. "What?" she asked, her hands still in his, their fingers intertwined. My family isn't poor. My father owns several ranches in the region. We have money, we have influence. But I chose to work the land, chose a simple life, because I love the earth, because I love authenticity. Your parents called me a ranch hand, a laborer, but they were wrong. I'm wealthy, Claire. I've always been wealthy. But I never wanted that to matter. I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I have. Claire looked at him with a mixture of emotions, surprise, anger, sadness. Why didn't you ever tell me? If your parents had known you were rich, they never would have forbidden me from being with you. Because I didn't want you to stay with me because of the money. I wanted you to stay with me because you loved me. And you did love me, Claire. You loved me for real, and that was all I ever needed. He looked into her eyes, and she saw the truth in his face, saw the sincerity, saw the love that had remained alive for 20 years. I still love you, she whispered, the words escaping her heart before her mind could stop them. I always loved you. Even when I was married to Richard, even when I tried to forget you, even when I tried to convince myself that you never existed, I still loved you. Luke pulled her into his arms, and they embraced under the stars, two hearts that had finally found their way back to each other, two hearts that had been separated by circumstances beyond their control, but that were now together again, and nothing in the world could separate them. But the disease was a constant shadow, an imminent threat that consumed her. Claire felt insecure, fragile, her body and soul marked by the battle she was fighting. She had lost weight during treatment, her hair had fallen out, leaving visible scars on her scalp, a constant reminder of the fight she was waging. One night, while they lay together, she finally said the words she had been avoiding. Luke, I'm sick. I don't know how much time I have left. I don't want you to get involved with someone who could die at any moment. I don't want to be a burden to you. She tried to push him away, her voice breaking, fearing the pain that her possible departure would cause him, a pain she knew all too well, a pain she didn't want to inflict on anyone she loved. You deserve someone healthy, someone who can give you a full life, a family. I can't give you that. I could die, Luke. I could leave you alone. And I can't do that to you. I can't. The words came out with difficulty, heavy with fear, desperation, and a deep sense of guilt. But Luke resisted, with an unwavering determination, with the strength of a love that had waited 20 years, a love that had remained alive even when they were apart, a love that was stronger than death, stronger than disease, stronger than any obstacle the universe could put in their way. Claire, my love, I don't care about the disease. I care about you. I loved you for 20 years, even without knowing where you were, even without knowing if you were alive or dead. I'm not leaving you now. I want to be by your side, through every step, through every battle. You're not a burden, you're the woman of my life. And I'm not giving up on you. Ever. No matter what happens. He held her tight, transmitting all his conviction, all his promise of eternal love, all his determination that they would face this together. During the 20 years Claire was married to Richard, Luke lived a life of silent waiting, of a love that never faded, that remained alive in his heart like a flame that couldn't be extinguished, no matter how hard he tried. After the painful forced separation, when her parents took her away, he tried to move on, but his heart never fully healed. There was a void in his chest that no one else could fill, a gap that only Claire could occupy. He dedicated himself to the family ranch, expanding the business, becoming a prosperous and respected man in the region, an example of hard work and honesty, a man admired for his strength, his intelligence, his kindness. But loneliness was a constant companion, a void that no material achievement could fill, no amount of money could buy. Many women approached him, attracted by his kindness, his character, and his position. Sarah, a beautiful and kind girl from the area, liked him very much, and his friends tried constantly to set them up. Have you seen Luke lately? He looks like a ghost. He's waiting. That girl, Claire, she left. He writes letters she never answers. They encouraged him, we need to help our friend. You know Sarah likes him. We could set them up, help him finally forget Claire. He needs us. Are you in? Yes, together. It's a good idea. He deserves to smile again. Let's help Luke. No matter the cost. Together, like always. But Luke's heart was still broken, sealed by a silent promise, a promise he had made to himself the day Claire was taken away. He didn't want to meet anyone, couldn't open himself to a new love. My heart is still broken. I only think about Claire. Why can't you understand that? He appreciated his friend's concern, but some wounds simply didn't want to heal, and Claire's wound was the deepest, the most painful, the most impossible to forget. He never married, never managed to give his heart to another person, never managed to make promises he knew he couldn't keep. He built a life, a fortune, but the most important piece was missing, Claire. He became a man of few words but great depth, always with a distant look, as if waiting for something that seemed never to arrive, but that he knew, deep in his heart, would one day come. He guarded memories of Claire like treasure, every smile, every touch, every word. He revisited the places where they had been together, imagining how she might be, if she was happy, if she was thinking of him. With every sunset, he thought of her, and with every shooting star, he made the same wish, to be reunited with her. His faith was unshakable, his hope a flame that never went out. He knew destiny would bring them together again, somehow, at some point, because a love like theirs couldn't simply disappear. A love like theirs was eternal. Then Luke heard the news that Claire was back in town. His heart, which seemed to have been sleeping for so long, awakened with an overwhelming force, like a river breaking through its dams, like a volcano that had been dormant and now exploded with all its fury and passion. He learned that she was sick, that she had been abandoned, and a silent rage took hold of him, rage directed at Richard, at her parents, at everyone who had tried to keep them apart. He knew she needed support, love, someone by her side. He couldn't leave her alone again, not after everything they'd been through, not after they had found each other again, not after the universe had given them a second chance. He thought about his life, about how he had always lived for others, to make his mother happy, to compensate for a father who never achieved success, to be the man his family expected him to be. But now, he needed to live for himself, for the love of his life, for the woman he had loved for 20 years, even though she didn't know it. His parents, seeing his determination, finally supported him. We approve 100%. I want to move to be with her. I want to be by her side while she goes through this. I want to be the man she deserved to have all along. Luke decided to leave everything behind and go to Willow Creek to be with Claire. He didn't care what others would say, about social conventions, about what society expected of him. His place was by her side, in the country, his home, his refuge, and now, his destiny. In Willow Creek, Claire was in the middle of treatment, fragile, her body weakened by chemotherapy, her hair falling in strands that frightened her, but with an unbreakable inner strength, fueled by Luke's presence, by the memory of their love, by the hope that maybe, just maybe, the universe had a plan for them. Suddenly, he appeared. No warning. No phone call. No message. He simply appeared, with a suitcase in hand, with a determination on his face that said he wasn't leaving, that he was there to stay. The reunion was emotional, a tight embrace that sealed the promise of a love that time hadn't erased, only strengthened. Claire, will you marry me? He asked, kneeling down, with a simple ring, but full of meaning, a symbol of a pure and true love that had resisted everything, all adversities, all attempts to tear them apart. She accepted, with tears in her eyes and her heart overflowing with joy and hope. This was the wedding she had always dreamed of, every detail she had imagined in her youth, and that now became reality, in the midst of adversity, in the midst of life's uncertainty, in the midst of the disease that consumed her. It was real, not a dream. They married in a simple ceremony, blessed by a priest who spoke of love, patience, and God's grace, guiding their steps in the light, uniting two souls that belonged together, that were destined to be as one. Luke's house in the country was beautiful, comfortable, a home where they would face everything together. It was a large house with wide porches that offered stunning views of the mountains, with cozy bedrooms, with a kitchen that smelled of life and home-cooked food. It wasn't a palace, but it was a home, and for Claire, who had spent 20 years in luxury apartments that felt like museums, it was the most beautiful place in the world. Luke took her through every room, showing her where he had lived, where he had waited for her, where he had dreamed of a future together. There were old photographs on the walls, photos of when they were young, photos he had kept over the years, photos he had looked at thousands of times, reliving those moments, that love that had remained alive in his heart. "I kept everything," he said, showing her an old box filled with letters, notes, small gifts she had given him when they were young. "I could never throw anything away. I couldn't let go." Claire cried, not from sadness, but from an emotion so profound she couldn't name it. She had spent 20 years trying to forget, and he had spent 20 years remembering, guarding every moment like treasure, like a promise that one day they would find each other again. Claire went through every phase of treatment with Luke by her side, at every chemotherapy session, at every medical appointment, through every moment of despair and every moment of hope. He was her shadow, her support, her strength, her reason to fight. The chemotherapy sessions were brutal. She sat in a chair with a needle in her arm while poisons that were supposed to save her burned through her from the inside. She felt nausea, felt weakness, felt like her body was disintegrating from the inside out. But Luke was there, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement, reminding her why she was doing this, reminding her that there was a future beyond that moment of pain. "You're strong, Claire. You're the strongest woman I know. You're going to beat this. I know you will." He said this at every session, and she believed him, because he believed in her. When she lost her hair, Luke didn't pull away. He helped her accept the change, to see the beauty in her courage, to understand that she was so much more than her hair, so much more than her physical appearance. "You're so beautiful," he would say, and she believed him, because he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. There were days when she couldn't get out of bed, days when the pain was so intense that she thought she wouldn't survive. Luke cared for her, bathed her, fed her, loved her unconditionally. He was her silence, her anchor in the storm's roar. He calmed her, protected her, loved her in every moment, through every victory, through every tear. He made her laugh, even in the darkest moments. "Ladies and gentlemen of the cheapest circus in Colorado," he would joke, making funny faces, transforming difficult moments into memories of joy, into small daily miracles. He would put on music and dance with her, even when she was weak, even when she could barely move. He would take her to the porch so she could feel the fresh air, so she could watch the sunset, so she could remember that she was still alive, that there was still beauty in the world. Finally, after months of treatment, after chemotherapy sessions, after surgery, after radiation, Claire received the news she had been waiting for. "You're in remission," the doctor said, with a smile that was so rare in an oncology office. "The cancer is gone. You won." "I won," she exclaimed, her eyes filled with tears of joy and gratitude, a cry of victory that echoed through her soul, that echoed through the house, that echoed across the entire countryside. Her hair was finally growing back, a symbol of her rebirth, of her new life, of her triumph. And Luke was there, celebrating every small victory, every step toward healing, toward a future together, a future that seemed impossible such a short time ago. They embraced, and she felt like she was floating, like the weight she had carried for so long had finally been lifted from her shoulders. She had won. She had survived. She was alive. But life, always full of surprises and unexpected turns, had another test in store for them. Weeks after receiving the news that she was in remission, Claire began to feel pain again. A pain that was familiar, a pain that frightened her, a pain that made her fear that everything had been in vain. The pain came back. A familiar visitor. This time it seems like, I think the disease returned. I feel pain. It's been days. Despair took hold of her again, the shadow of death seemed to approach, threatening to steal her newly found happiness, threatening to steal her future with Luke. Luke, desperate, took her to the doctor, his heart tight, fearing the worst. Luke, what happened? I think the cancer came back, man, even more aggressive. I don't want to lose Claire. Not again. He spoke with his best friend, Tom Alvarez, who accompanied him to the office, who supported him at every step of this journey. Tom calmed him, asking for patience, with a look of hope. You have to be strong, together, now more than ever. I'll fight this with you until the end. But the diagnosis was different, one that brought tears of joy and disbelief, a miracle that defied science and Claire's age, a miracle that no one had expected, that no one had predicted, that seemed impossible. You two are expecting a baby, the doctor said, with a smile that was so rare in a medical office. Against all odds, against all medical logic, the tests confirmed it. You're going to be parents. Claire couldn't believe it. That's not possible. They told me my age was perimenopause. Rare, but not impossible. The embryo is healthy. 5 weeks. We did it, my love. It's good too. I can't believe it. It's a miracle. Luke looked at her with a mixture of emotions, surprise, joy, disbelief. A baby? We're going to have a baby? Yes, confirmed the doctor. Against all odds, you're going to have a baby. The pregnancy is healthy, and the baby is developing normally. It's truly a miracle. It wasn't her time to leave. She would stay here, feel the air, bring the love that was inside her, a new being that symbolized life, hope, continuity, proof that love conquers all, even the cruelest adversities, even death, even cancer. The news spread, and family and friends celebrated with them, with parties and warm embraces, with the contagious joy of a miracle. Catherine cried with happiness. Luke's parents, who had supported their son at every step, celebrated the grandchild on the way. Claire's children, who had been worried about their mother's health, now celebrated the life on the way. My heart is so happy. They're so happy for us. I told you everything would be okay, whispered Claire, lying beside Luke, her hand resting on her abdomen, where a new being was growing, where a new love was developing. New winds blew through their lives. A baby was on the way, a symbol of hope, of renewal, of a love that had overcome all adversities, all prohibitions, all pain. Claire could walk and breathe in peace, with the certainty that her place was there, beside Luke, building a family, a future, a legacy of love that defied time and destiny. Time passed, and little Ryan was born, bringing even more joy and light to their lives. He was perfect, with his mother's blue eyes, with his father's warm smile. When Claire held him for the first time, she felt a love so deep, so pure, that she thought her heart might explode. Claire, I think Ryan is hungry. It's time to eat, my love, said Luke, with a tender smile, watching his wife nurse their son, watching the life they had created together, the life that had been born from a love that had resisted everything. Ryan was the symbol of everything they had overcome, everything they had conquered, everything that love could do. He was proof that the miracle was real, that destiny had conspired in their favor, that the universe had recognized their love and rewarded them with life. The story of Claire and Luke was a testament to the fact that true love can overcome any obstacle, that life always offers a second chance, and that happiness doesn't cost much if you have someone by your side. What no one else in the world had done, Luke did in less than a month. He loved her, he healed her, he freed her, he made her reborn, and together, they built a future that seemed impossible, a future of love and fulfillment. Claire's heart overflowed with words, with gratitude for that love that had rescued her from the depths of despair. She felt so good beside Luke. He always conquered her with his charm, with the mystery he held in his gaze. She loved him, didn't know how to explain why, but wanted to love him more and more, every day, every instant, for all eternity. What no one else in her life had done, he did in less than a month. He made her happy, made her feel complete, made her find the true essence of life, the beauty of a love that transcends time, pain, and all adversities. Being happy didn't cost much. All that was necessary was finding the right person, the person who loves you for real, the person willing to fight for you, the person who believes in you when you don't believe in yourself. And Claire had found that person. She had found Luke. And together, they had found the happiness that money couldn't buy, that status couldn't offer, that society couldn't dictate. They had found true love. And that was all that mattered. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Richard continued his life with the secretary, that young woman he had chosen instead of staying by his sick wife's side. But life had a way of collecting its debts, a way of making people face the consequences of their choices. The secretary, who had seemed so perfect, so healthy, so problem-free, revealed herself to be exactly what Richard had sought, superficial, empty, interested only in his money and his status. She betrayed him constantly, spent his money irresponsibly, humiliated him in public. Richard had traded true love, a love that had lasted 20 years, for an illusion, for a fantasy of youth and beauty that faded with each passing day. He saw Claire's photos on social media, photos of her with Luke, photos of her pregnant, photos of her with her newborn baby. She was radiant, she was alive, she was happy in a way he had never seen during their 20 years of marriage. And he realized, far too late, that he had made a terrible mistake, that he had thrown away the most precious treasure of his life. But it was too late. Claire had moved on, had found the love she deserved, had built the life she should have always had. Richard was left alone, with his unfaithful secretary, with his money that couldn't buy happiness, with the regret that consumed him every day. Claire had transformed completely. She had left her job at the corporation, had left Chicago, had left the life of appearances and conveniences. Now she lived in the country with Luke, raising their son, cultivating the land, living a simple but full life, a life that was authentic, a life that was truly hers. She had found the peace she had searched for so long. She had found the love she deserved. She had found herself. Her children visited regularly, and they saw the transformation in their mother. She was lighter, happier, more alive than ever. "Mom, you're so different," said her daughter, embracing her. "You're finally happy." "Yes, sweetheart. I'm finally happy. I'm finally being myself," responded Claire, with a smile that was genuine, that was pure, that was true. The story of Claire and Luke was a lesson for everyone who heard it. It was a lesson about the power of true love, about the importance of following your heart, about the need to question the expectations society places on us, about the importance of being authentic, of being true, of being yourself. It was a lesson about how life can change in an instant, about how a diagnosis can destroy everything you've built, but also can free you from a life you never chose. It was a lesson about how love can heal, about how love can save, about how love can transform an entire life. It was a lesson about second chances, about how the universe sometimes offers us an opportunity to correct our mistakes, to find our true path, to live the life we should have always lived. In Luke's house in the country, in Willow Creek, Colorado, Claire woke every morning with the rising sun, with the song of birds, with the smell of earth and life. She would get up, go to the kitchen, make coffee for her family, and sit on the porch to watch the dawn. Luke would embrace her from behind, and together they would watch the sun rise over the mountains, over the countryside, over the life they had built together. Ryan slept in his crib, dreaming baby dreams, dreaming of a bright future, dreaming of a world full of love. "Are you happy?" Luke would ask, whispering in her ear. "Happier than I've ever been," Claire would respond, turning to kiss him, a kiss that was a promise, a kiss that was a celebration, a kiss that was a thank you to the universe for giving her a second chance. And so, the story of Claire and Luke continued, day after day, moment after moment, building a life together, a life of love, of joy, of authenticity, a life that was truly theirs. And so, through loss, rebirth and miracles, Anna and Lucas discovered that true love doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, it helps me so much to keep creating audio villas like this. Share it with someone who loves a good emotional story, and tell me in the comments, which part hit you the hardest? Thank you for staying with me until the end. See you in the next story.